here. Okay, awesome.
Morning, Dawn.
Thanks
Morning.
everyone for joining on the call here today. Tara, do you have roll call completed or do you want to go through that?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Tara did send out the minutes from just last week's meeting. Do I have a mover for that on last week's meeting minutes? Kelly, and a seconder, Richard. Okay, so if we're all good with no comments there, we'll go ahead and move for a motion to vote on passing last week's minutes. And awesome. Brad's home now. Does anyone have declaration of pecuniary interest today? No. Okay. So we're going to move right into the business at hand. And I will ask, thank you, Brent, for joining us again today, bringing back some additional information. If you want to turn it over, if you were going to do your own screen sharing or if you want Tara to do it, just let us know. But I'll turn it over to you at this point.
Thank you, Beverly. Tara, yes, if you could bring up the additional information slides, that'd be great. If you could forward them as I go through them. Thank you, Tara. And maybe before I start the discussion, and maybe this will be more for future as we move forward with respect to working with tourism in general from community development enterprise services. And Joe raised a good point at the last meeting, so I just want to recognize that is to go forward with respect to budget items, even for awareness items, even though if it may be strictly city funded, that we make the tourism board aware. And then if there is an ask that we do come forward. So we will proceed in that fashion going forward. So thanks, Joe, for that suggestion last time, and anything going forward for future years, at least be on the radar so that our lines of communication are working well. So we will commit to doing that moving forward. We did the presentation last time. We were asked for some information on with respect to kind of clarity of where this was and what we're looking to do and achieve. So we provided some more information here in advance of the meeting and some history. So the prior structure was right along Montana's as a floating structure accessed by steel ramps. There was some challenges with the prior connecting link there because it was not accessible, AOID compliant, and there was some issues with it sinking. The steel pontoons were severely damaged in the year 2011 when the water was low and it wasn't repairable. So it was removed in the spring of 2011. And the next slide, Tara, if you could move forward, please. As a sample of some of the pictures here where you could see the position, it obviously angling in, and the condition was not to a state that was acceptable. So we had removed that at that time. Next slide, Tara. So we have a few slides, one here and one at the end of the presentation, just to paint a picture of where it connects easily. So you'll see on the dock of the Bellevue, I should say the Bondar Marina, that it's accessed right in the circle there, which is actually north, entered there alongside Montana's on the most easterly side of the Bondar Marina, and then continues on where that other circle in the red is along on the south side of the John Roswell Hub Trail. And there's just a gentleman there going close to that access point. Next slide, please. So the proposed walkway, well, there'll be a couple pictures coming forward, will be at road level. It's going to be fully accessible. Did confirm that it's 8 feet wide in width. It'll complement the existing marina structure. With it being a new facility, there'll be minimal maintenance compliance, allow for lighting features to be added, and will complement the hub trail to connect that missing link, as I stated. Next slide, please. This is kind of a visual of what the structure would look like here. So it's going to be nice, and it's going to be appropriate for the area space. If you could kind of think maybe even some along the lines of the Fort Creek structure, it has some similarities along that line and be fully accessible. Next slide. This slide here gives you an overview of how it connects right along the Bondar tent right along the front of the waterfront in front of the Civic Center, and then back up connecting to Clerk Park, which is a very heavily utilized area. I'm aware that through tourism, some of the key priorities were the downtown core and the waterfront. And so this first piece, a link right here would be an important connecting link there along the waterfront as you head down towards the old Suncor site and the Ermitanger site and the Bush Plain Museum. So that would be a connecting link there, which is very important. I'm not sure if there's any more slides, Tara, if you want to go forward one more. I think that's the end of it. So thank you for that. So a couple other things, if I may, Madam Chair. The ask originally was for $200,000. Just to recap and reinforce that the original budget was $700,000 for this ask, which we had the money set aside, $500,000 and $200,000. Unfortunately, we had that approved from City Council. The budget due to COVID did come in substantially more at approximately $1.4 million. So if this would have came in on budget, we would have just went forward, unfortunately. So I just want to make that clarity point there that we did have the money. Going forward with this ask, going forward, we still have the $500,000. We do have the FedNor grant of, I should say, $500,000 of the amount. Through value management, we are able to bring this figure down to approximately the $1 million. We will be going back to ask City Council, and it would be great to be able to provide to them that tourism does support this project. If $200,000 is not an amount that's a comfortable amount with the board, even any type of contribution would help the project. If even an amount as low as $50,000 would show that tourism would be supportive of this project and the important connecting link, and we'll be making the request of council. Now, should tourism support this, we would be going back to council on November 21st to ask for this funding so we could move forward on the project immediately to make sure that we don't lose the $500,000 that's there. Which is a substantial contribution to the project of $1 million at 50%. So that's all I have for the presentation today. In addition to the presentation that went forward last time, happy to try to answer any questions you may have, and thank you for letting me present again here today.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Brent. I will turn it over to the board here. Has anyone had any thoughts or questions that have come up that you'd like to direct towards Brent here? Go ahead, Joe.
Yes, thank you. Brent, I appreciate your acknowledgement with respect to working with tourism. That is, all city departments, if they're going to come to tourism for funding, we should know that at the beginning of the budget process. In order to address the matters that we started last meeting and deal with it today, and this is not intended to be a criticism, but we're at the early stages of working with the city and with Matt. And what we do today will, I think, impact what happens 4 or 5 years from now, even in terms of process. And I was involved in setting up what we have now in terms of negotiating with the city well before we got the memorandum of understanding and so forth. At the end of the day, we have $760,000, and as Richard will tell us, subject to adjustments on an annual basis in terms of budgeting for promotion of tourism in Sault Ste. Marie. In addition to that, whatever MAT money is then collected over and above that is for development. So when we're required under a memorandum of understanding to come up with an annual budget, which then goes to council and council approves it. Because of COVID, we have some extra dollars. We saved money, we put money aside to be utilized when most effective. Now we have a pot of money, but I don't think that that should be a piggy bank or a source of funding for things that we in tourism should be deciding upon. If we want to use money for matters in conjunction with the city, we have that development fund that we should work with. In this particular case, my concern is that we're being asked to fund indirectly that additional plaza costs that we needed, and some of these other areas, can't be done. That's the public information. So I think in the future, we should work together to come up with the use of tourism dollars, the MAT funds, and have that put in the whole budget for the year. I don't have any other questions. But I appreciate your effort to include us in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Kelly,
Oh,
you
I'm
had
sorry. There's one other thing. Excuse me. I don't understand how this development would promote tourism. At the end of the day, we're talking about a sidewalk. How does that promote tourism? And we're supposed to be spending money to promote tourism for the city. That's the question here.
And do you want me to speak to that? Maybe let Travis go, Beverly?
Yeah, Travis, do you have anything to add on that?
Sure. So just a point of clarification, first off, Joe, with respect to, call it $763,000 that the board has for their budget right now, the way that the provincial legislation is stated is that's for product development and marketing. So it can be used for both. So I just wanted to make that.
I'm sorry, it's to promote tourism. That's the legislation.
Joe, I'll send a copy of the legislation.
I've got it in front of me. Our memorandum is here. I've got it here.
Yeah, I'm talking about the provincial legislation regarding the use of municipal accommodation tax.
I'm not disagreeing with you that under the legislation, it says promoting tourism includes development product for tourism. I've got it in front of me. For greater certainty, expression, promotion of tourism and promoting tourism includes development tourism products. I've got it in front of me. That's subsection 2. And I agree with that. That's why we have money for us, which replaces the DMF, and you have the additional funds in the development fund.
Can I address one issue there, Joe? Is the boardwalk, this is part of the boardwalk. You go on TripAdvisor, and I'm a believer in looking at TripAdvisor. The second most appreciated tourism on TripAdvisor is our boardwalk. So I guess I have to disagree that the boardwalk isn't important for tourism. So I'll do a promotion for the bush plane. The bush plane's #1, the boardwalk's #2.
I think part of the question is it's a lot of money at the end of the day when you factor in the grants and that. So what is the return, and where are we getting money back from this extension? Like where will that revenue be generated? I know that I think Lawrence asked last time, or Dawn, with regards to, again, vendors and that kind of thing down there. Where will that, will we see some type of revenue generation by completing this? And I guess the other question that I personally would have is, what is the city's plans for the rest of the extension, and what is the cost going to be looking like to finalize the connection from that point until the past City Hall?
Well, I can take a part of this question, I guess, Beverly, and then maybe see if Travis has anything else he wants to add from the continuation of the link. But from the first question there, kind of building off of what Richard said with respect to TripAdvisor, people do come to Sault Ste. Marie. And yes, it is one of the most searched things that people do. Tourists that are here naturally gravitate to the waterfront. I see people all the time that are from both Sault Ste. Marie and external using the waterfront. It's something that they gravitate to when they come here, and it's they use all the amenities that are along the way. Beaver Tails, the 2 restaurants that are there, all the way down through to the locks in the Canal District, the Mill Market. There's tourists quite frequently that you meet right along the boardwalk, so they naturally gravitate. You need things for individuals to do while they're here in the community. And this is one that everyone uses right in the downtown core. It may not be the main reason they come to Sault Ste. Marie, but it's definitely used by tourists while they're here. Again, cruise ships this year, we had record cruise ships at the port as well. Another additional thing that is used right there, and they'll use this link tying in all the way down from the canal machine shop all the way down through to the bush plane, the Ermitinger. It's a natural link to all of our major tourist attractions that we have here. So, and that will maybe pass off to Travis. He has a little bit more insight into the connectivity going through Clergue Park, through the Suncor site. So maybe Travis is a good spot here for you to jump in.
Yeah, thanks, Brent. So, I mean, I think, so there's a few points here where I think the connection is the first step in a broader conversation about, the development or potentially the redevelopment of the waterfront and the important connection that it provides. And I appreciate that, when you look at, some, potentially not all of the hotels in the downtown, the guests do actively use the boardwalk. There is the opportunity with the extension to expand the amount of time on the boardwalk and the potential for spending money at a few of the restaurants that are located along the boardwalk in that area, as well as in the future looking at that as a potential extension in and around that area for future commerce opportunities. So, probably most immediate, making it into a connection in that area to drive traffic from the lock tour boats, from the cruise ships, down towards the art gallery extension, the bush plane, and into the plaza. And then I think as we look long term, one of the conversations that we have had, at least internally, and I think we've, at least put a pin in this with the tourism board, is developing, seasonal, temporary pop-up, tourism shops, additional food trucks in the area, and any build out of the waterfront, I think will better support that. Do I think we need to continue and look at a more comprehensive view of the waterfront? Absolutely. But I think being able to develop this particular section, utilizing for the bulk of it the contribution from FedNor, adds some weight to this request.
One thing, if I may add there, Beverly, that just came to mind, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, with respect to the mobile retail units, they're actually on the hub trail right now. Ruber's is one that serves local food, whitefish and product here locally. And in discussions with him, he says he's seen people from all over the world throughout the summer during the pilot that's been right on the hub trail on the boardwalk. So there's a testimonial there that he sees people from all over the place that are visiting and walking along the boardwalk. So just an extra piece of information. Thanks.
Thank you. Elia?
I'm gonna just be honest here. Like this is really unfortunate because this is one of my favorite pieces of the waterfront. Is that connection in the marina, and I don't disagree that the waterfront is integral to traffic downtown and to tourism. However, this particular piece, at the time that it comes from, is coming to us, I just don't see it being an integral piece to tourism in our city, because it's not like you've completely cut off the waterfront. Yes, you may not be able to walk around Montana's at this point because that link is not there. But you can walk along Foster Drive and still connect to the Clergue Park portion of the hub trail and all the way down to the Bush Plane Museum. So there's no broken link really in this waterfront at the way I see it. I think, I can understand and appreciate not wanting to let go of the FedNor funds. I'm not sure if there's opportunity to ask for an extension past the March 31st deadline for FedNor. But I just don't see it being like 100% it's necessary at this point. If it was like Joe said, you come and include us in the conversation sooner, there'd be something, we could do more. But I can appreciate where Joe's saying, like, this is not just a piggy bank that the city can come and ask for additional funds because you let go of the funds that you've already had because you put it towards the plaza. Those are my sentiments towards this project. I like it. It is one of my favorite spots on the boardwalk, but in terms of using and I don't deny the importance of the waterfront to tourism in our city and the connectivity of it. I just don't see this particular portion of the boardwalk being necessary because I don't see it as a broken link. There's still access from all the way from where I am to all the way to where Richard is at the beginning and end of the boardwalk. So
You guys really are boardwalk bookends.
yeah, we are. So that's my sentiment on this project here.
Okay. Nick, you didn't have an opportunity to join us last time. Do you have any thoughts on the project? Or am I sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
No, you always do, Beverly. That's okay. It's your job too. And I do have some thoughts. I am a runner at lunchtime, and I used to love going behind the city hall, in that little section there. But I've become pretty used to not having it. And I mean, Richard's investigation on TripAdvisor, and we're number 2 on TripAdvisor for Boardwalk, even without that section, speaks volumes that people are able to find their way, as Elia said, without it. I can't see there being a major revenue impact for Montana's, which is really the only one that's missing, by having a boardwalk go around it right now, because everybody can still access it. I find it a pretty large price tag for a very small section that our tourists are already accessing the trail without it. It's going to be hard. I mean, if it was something, if it was a $200,000 contribution from us to help put the entire project of a boardwalk on the waterfront together, I think I'd be all for it. It's just going to be challenging for us as hoteliers and probably anyone to even quantify a return on investment with this amount and the limited funds that we have to offer from our side.
Thanks, Nick. And again, for the board, keeping in mind that, the ask is 200,000. We can discuss lower amounts in that as well, towards that contribution. Did we have anyone else there that had comments? Kelly, I know you had popped on there briefly and then we got away from you.
Sorry. Yeah, I think that Elia and Nick, I support exactly where they're both coming from. I believe that we all are in support of waterfront activation, but I believe that for the most part, we're in agreement that the missing link isn't going to drive additional tourism to the downtown. It's already there. It's already thriving. We need to give them something to do. And walking on the waterfront isn't what they're looking for. It's activities, it's food and beverage, it's all of that activation that we've been talking about.
Thanks, Kelly. Did we have any other questions here for Brent or comments? Or else we can let Brent go and then go on to the boardwalk extension and come back on the resolution afterwards. Okay, Kel?
Sorry, I just wanted to say that I did feel that Brent came back better prepared today. And I just wanted to thank you, Brent, for that. I felt like there was more pictures that we could look at and just more detail as well. So that was greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate everyone's time letting us come back today to the tourism board. So Beverly, if I'm not needed, I will jump off the call now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing anyone else that has any questions. So thank you very much for that, Brent.
Thank you, everyone.
And Travis, at this time, I'll be turning it over to you to present with regards to the cruise ship vendors.
Okay, thank you, Beverly. Sorry, Sure, I think I can handle this one, so I'll see. Is everyone able to see my screen? Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the port fender replacement, and in essence, the area that I'm discussing is this area to the south side of the Bondar Pavilion, and the fenders pertain almost exclusively to the cruise ships that dock in this area. So I'll just give a bit of, very quickly, the Bondar Park was developed in the early 90s, multi-use facility and part of the waterfront revitalization project at that time. So the existing shipping wall was extended to present dimensions, utilizing high-strength steel and building the current walkway surrounding the pavilion and marina building. So there is at present, we use 9x9, 10-foot long hemlock timbers that are installed on the river pilings, which provide protection from the mooring ships. So this basically buffers the cruise ships, in terms of keeping them away from rubbing directly on the steel. So in the years prior to 2016, the port was used minimally, anywhere from 2 to 8 times a season. And now we're seeing a significant uptick. I believe this year we've had 31 vessels that will be docking at this location. I'll just move forward here. So the dock itself can accommodate vessels up to 560 feet long and a depth of 20 feet. As mentioned, we had 31 ships for this year with an average of 200 passengers, and already for 2023, we have 19 ships that are planning to dock here. And the impact to tourism with these vessels, I think, the major contribution at this time is the associated bus tours, where the passengers that are on the vessels come off, hop on tours and hit our cultural attractions. So, there's a net benefit to the art gallery, to the bush plane, to Ermitinger, and the museum. And I'd like to discuss this a little bit further, based on some of the comments that I've heard from Kelly and others about how we activate the waterfront and look at programming for that, because I think there is potential for increased benefits to the community. So as mentioned, the fenders themselves take severe impact from cruise ships. We've got at present 60 wood fenders. We've replaced 10 of them in 2016 for about $10,600. The lifespan with the hemlock fenders is not great. You're looking at anywhere from 2 to a maximum of 5 years, but generally they're failing based on the heavy usage in less than 2 years. So if these aren't present, then they cause damage to the cruise ships, which obviously none of them went to sea, and we'll see them as a result start docking more frequently on the Sioux, Michigan side. So you can see here the wood's missing, so you've got the hinges sticking directly out with the potential to rub up against those cruise ships. So the proposal is to replace those fenders with these floating fenders, which have a much larger lifespan, upwards of 10 years or more. I believe these are the current fenders that are being used at the Purvis Marina, and in discussions with them, the lifespan has been over 10 years. So there's a great deal of protection there. There's no underwater work that's needed, should they require maintenance or replacement, and they give increased protection for the vessels rather than what you're seeing just with the wood fenders themselves. So we are looking at replacing them. We'd only need 10 of them to replace it. But the request from the Tourism General Fund would be $160,000 to replace those fenders. And just to link this back to the previous conversation, should there be a decision between one or the other, the City of Sault Ste. Marie would be looking for funding for the boardwalk extension first, with a possible deferral should the board not be interested in funding this specific proposal. So I'm not sure. So that concludes my presentation, and Beverly, I'll turn it over to you to ask for any questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Travis. Okay, so another ask here with regards to the cruise ship fenders. Did anyone have questions for Travis with regards to what the plan is or concerns that they have? Oh, Callie?
Sorry, my phone, it's hard to hear a little bit, so you kind of get my ear in the picture. But who funded the initial project?
So at the time, as mentioned, when it was funded initially, it was in 2016, where we had very limited amount of vessels, and we weren't seeing the cruise ships, the Great Lake cruise ships, coming to the port. And obviously, the cruise ships aren't something that is utilized by local residents. So it's viewed from the city's perspective as very clearly a tourism product.
For sure. I see a huge benefit to tourism. I think we all do again, but I think we just have to be careful as to what maintenance projects we're assuming. Maintaining Sault Ste. Marie and building Sault Ste. Marie, I just feel are two different points of view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Kelly, I don't completely disagree with you. I mean, it's certainly, there could be other requests for maintenance that might not qualify here. I think from our side, the concern would be, should the vessels be damaged, any consideration of those vessels relocating to the U.S. side has a direct impact on the cultural attractions. And then should we, and I am very supportive of this idea, should the board decide to fund, seasonal pop-up shops, what have you, to increase commerce in this location, I think there's a great deal of benefit there for whomever the vendors may be.
And if we approve the go ahead of this project, who assumes the liability should there be any?
Yeah, it would be maintained through the Port of Sault Ste. Marie, which is the City of Sault Ste. Marie.
And just for a reference or a comparison, who maintains Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan's waterfront projects?
Unfortunately, I don't have that information. I am presenting on behalf of Rick Orion, who maintains the Port of Sault Ste. Marie. And I would have to inquire with him to see if he has that information.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Travis, my apologies if I missed it, but the ask at 160, is that the full amount to replace the 10 fenders? So they're asking for the full amount of the project.
That would be 100%.
Joe?
Travis, was this budgeted some other item in the city budget, general budget, before it came to us?
It was directed from the finance group to request from Tourism Sault Ste. Marie. But yeah, the original thought was to look at a capital request of council.
No, I didn't ask. That's not the question I asked. The question I asked is, was this a budget item of the city's before you came to us?
It's never made it.
My understanding is this was a budget item in the city's budget, and then there's funding issues in terms of being able to do it. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, it's never made it through the capital review of the city's budget. It's always been requested to remove it.
Right. So it's one of those cases again where the city wanted to do it, ran out of money, and now they come to tourism.
Well, Joe, it sounds like it's our problem because we bring the tour boats, we bring the boats. So it's up to us to put in new fenders. I mean, if that was my car and there was damage to my car, I wouldn't be expecting somebody else to fund the project. I know it has to get done. It's just, obviously looking at that, I had no idea what kind of poor shape it was in. And yet everybody's right here that the boats will stop coming if they can't port safely. It's just, it's tough to understand. I'm kind of at a loss here. Sorry. It feels kind of like the same project, like the first one that we just chatted about.
Travis, is there ongoing maintenance or that would have to be done in those 10 years, and who would take that on?
So it would be addressed, like if there were maintenance costs associated. So let me clarify, significantly less maintenance. There could be a situation where there's a replacement fender needed. But as of right now, the expectation is that there would be very limited maintenance for this particular type of fender relative to the wood fenders.
I have a follow-up question, if you don't mind. When would this be done? In the spring?
Yeah, it's my understanding it would be done, next spring.
So if that's the case, what would be the issue, if any, to defer this to the new council and consider it as part of the development fund in 2000 for the next budget?
Yeah, I think that would be something that we would be willing to to accept 100%.
And that, with all due respect, that fits within the framework that we have in the legislation. I mean, this could be a product, obviously, for tourism, but not necessarily out of the fund that we have, which under our agreement with the city is for promotion of tourism. Now, I understand that this is a product, though. I appreciate that, Travis.
Yeah. And Joe, just to be completely transparent on this, I've asked Beverly to send out the MOU because I believe in Section 5, financial accountability. I think it's worth reviewing that because I do believe it's very clear that product development is under that. But we'll send that out.
Yeah, I've got it in front of me.
Yeah.
I'll read it to you.
Okay.
It says, to utilize the amounts payable by the city to the tourism pursuant to the terms of the MOU for exclusive purpose of promoting tourism in the city. That's what it says.
So, okay, just bear with me. So I'm reading Section 5 of the MOU, Financial Accountability of Tourism Sault Ste. Marie. Section A, Tourism Sault Ste. Marie acknowledges and agrees to utilize all amounts granted by the city to Tourism Sault Ste. Marie pursuant to the terms of this MOU for exclusive purpose of promoting tourism and tourism development for the city, and that its obligations as set out in Section 4A1 herein is also legislative requirement pursuant to Section 6.1 of Ontario Regulation 435/17. So I would argue, and I know I can't win an argument with you.
No, I'm not arguing with you.
Yeah, but
I just have a different understanding.
Okay, so not my place to get involved, but let's you and Karen Field have a conversation there.
I've argued with the best of them, and I just don't want to see that $760,000 as adjusted annually, as Richard will tell us, to be doing things that, was never, in my opinion, intended to happen. I mean, we've got lots of marketing and promotion that we could do and events that we want to bring to this city. That $760,000 doesn't go very far. Look at what you put on the table for us, with the greatest respect. $250,000 for the walk, another $160,000 here for the bond our place. That's a hell of a lot of money that isn't, in my respectful opinion, promotion of tourism. So all of a sudden, what do we have left over for events to bring in all kinds of advertising and marketing? We should be spending $500,000 a year just in marketing and promotion.
Yeah, so I don't disagree with you on increasing the marketing budget, but I think one of the big pieces that we need to look at is, in my personal opinion, I do believe, this conversation aside about these particular items, I do think we need more products in the community, because I think we need more avenues to attract people here. And I 100% agree on the marketing side, but I do think we also need to look at adding more products to give additional reasons for people to come and additional reasons for people to stay longer. So I think they both need to happen in concert.
So Joe, just for clarification, the ask is not from those MAP funds, though, it's from the General Development Fund.
No.
Okay. And it's 200 on the boardwalk and 160 on this one.
A lot of money.
Hands down, hands down, it is a lot of money.
So just so I understand, Travis, so the community services department, just for general, has gone to finance under capital, request 160, and finance under capital saying, well, that's more of a tourism product. Go ask the tourism development folks over there if they have the money to fund it.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. That's correct.
And then if it were to get funded though through us, if we approve or whatever, and I do kind of agree with Joe that we should defer it to September. Any additional maintenance that is required for the fenders, will that come out of the general operating costs for the Port of Sault Ste. Marie?
So I would have to come back to you on that. My understanding is maintenance right now is being handled by the that group themselves. I can't speak to, if there was a replacement,
right,
whether or not they would approach the board.
And then, so they become their property of Sault Ste. Marie. However, are we going to, in 10 years, when they need to be replaced, have to replace it again? So, and I know that's a very long way, and we probably all won't be the people sitting here deciding that. Just it becomes almost like our asset in a way, because we've purchased it. Will we always be looking at having to do that, which then becomes a line budget item down in the future? Also, the maintenance thing, that I would like clarification on, and who takes care of the annual maintenance, if there is any, or if something were to break. And I agree with Joe, I would defer this to spring and look at new budget and it coming through possibly the TDF, where I think it is more suitable to come out of than through our general, or maybe a 50-50. But I would rather keep our general budget for products that we are leading, we as in Tourism Sault Ste. Marie, and products and promotion and marketing and that sort of thing. So that would be my sentiment for that.
Okay.
Don, you
Travis,
had something to jump in there?
Yeah, I just have a question about are you guys doing a formal economic impact study of having these cruise ships land? Because Because I mean, if they're just porting and moving on, yeah, okay, maybe they walk around. I'd be interested to know what the economic impact of having the ships stop before saying, okay, I would invest so much money to help with vendors or some sort of maintenance on the port. Then I can look at it and say, okay, an investment of 160,000 returns whatever, right? In economic impact, tourism economic impact. Prior, like it'd be handy information to know prior to making a commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can follow up with the Great Lakes Cruise Association because I believe they have that information readily available. And apologize for not. Oh, looks like Alana's got something else to say.
I can help with that. At the end of the season, Don, we will be doing a recap. I've been working with all of the ships coming in, doing their itinerary. So I have a pretty good handle on where they're going and what their numbers look like, but we're going to recap it all up in a summary at the end of the season. The ships do park here, and a good number of the folks, usually 100 to 160 plus, are out on every stop here doing a series of 2 to 3 different itineraries, including the cultural attractions, Lake Superior Coastal Drive, and there's groups that head out east and do a day trip out to St. Joe's Island and back. So we will be bundling that all up, and we can provide some of that data at the end of the season for you.
And then on that, Alana, just to build off your comment, we know this year with the ArriveCan app, we did lose because we're also seeing the cruise ships dock on the Michigan side and coming over. So the general benefit of the cruise ships as well, we can include.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because the cruise ships this year, we had 30 stops here that were just Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario stops where the ships docked at our port. There was an additional 40 stops on the US side where typically we would see half of those numbers come back. So our numbers are lower this year, potential with programming and reduction of the border restrictions for next year to double our numbers.
Thank you for that information, Alana and Travis. And I mean, it would be certainly beneficial to see where those numbers come in at as well. Did we have any other questions or comments from the board with regards to the vendors? I mean, again, it's certainly a big ask. It is something that we can, again, consider going back and saying that we support, however, in a lower amount. So we do have options, or as Joe brought up, we can certainly defer this to a further one. Travis, do we have an idea as to what the timeline is? I mean, everyone right now knows what supply and demand issues are like out there, and that the supply chain is terrible. Do we know what the timeline is on this if it gets deferred into the new year in order to order the 10, install them, all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, Beverly, unfortunately, I have to circle back with Rick on that, but it's certainly something that we can bring to the new board early in the new year.
Okay. Nick?
Travis, has somebody done a safety study on these current vendors as to whether or not they're actually able to be housing cruise ships right now, or is it an estimated deterioration over the next year to 3 years in which we won't be able to facilitate the same amount of traffic?
Yeah, I mean, so just based on the team's experience here, like the team being the Port of Algoma team, they know they're replacing them every 2 years, some shorter, some slightly longer. But just from experience, they know that they've been going through the current vendors quite quickly. So,
but is it a TSSA inspection or some governing body that makes sure these are up to code for housing this kind of volume and traffic of large cruise ships? I would think there's some sort of safety standard that would have to be adhered to, and I'd just be curious to know what their assessment would be.
Yeah, Nick, my apologies. I'm going to have to follow up with the staff there that oversee this.
Yep, no problem at all.
The ships don't carry their own fenders, I gather, right?
Yeah, that's what, apparently not.
Richard and I are familiar with that problem.
Yeah.
Okay, did we have anyone that had anything further that they wanted to add? Okay. We can go ahead and discuss the resolution on this as far as moving ahead or deferring. I'm kind of hearing from the board that there's some more information that we'd like to hear before we make a decision on that. Is that a safe assumption on my part? Okay, so can I ask for a mover then to defer this resolution to a further date? Dawn? Oh, sorry, oh, Dawn, you were moving. I don't usually have a mover that quickly. So I would like to, Dawn's moving so that we can defer this resolution to a further date when we can have information back from Alana with regards to the economic impact and Travis with regards to some of those maintenance issues and other questions with regards to the safety. So Dawn has moved. Do I have a seconder? Nick? And all in favor of deferring this resolution?
Can I suggest can I suggest an amendment that we defer this for next year's budget? In other words, I don't know when Alana will have that report, but I'd hate to come back here next week if we're not doing this purchase until the spring, that we could consider funding it from the development fund.
Okay. Travis, is that something that's doable, that we defer this until the first board meeting of the new year?
Yeah, absolutely.
When it's under the 2020, the new budget? Okay.
Yeah, and that, as I think everybody's aware, this board has 3 more meetings until the new board comes on.
Okay, so if we're all comfortable with that, Tara, we will have Dawn as a mover and Nick as a seconder with regards to deferring until the first board meeting of the new year and budget. All in favor of that deferral? Okay, motion carried. So going back to the boardwalk extension with the ask at $200,000. I'll ask the board, do we feel comfortable with the $200,000 ask? Would we want to discuss perhaps a lower amount in support of this project, or would we like to? Joe?
I'd move that we deny funding.
Okay.
I'll second.
The others, Kelly, Nick, Brad. Okay.
Sorry, I'm gonna deny. I have 1% in case I lose you guys.
Okay, so we have Joe that's moving to deny this resolution. Dawn is seconding. Kelly is in agreement with that. I'll call for a vote to deny this resolution. Okay. So that is carried as a no move forward.
Funding has been denied. That's the resolution.
Yeah, where the resolution has been denied or did not pass.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Travis, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Beverly, and thanks, board. Appreciate the decisions being made there. So as mentioned, the board's got 3 more meetings. You know, obviously the boardwalk and the waterfront and the downtown was identified as a priority from the board. From my side, what I'm interpreting the comments from the board members is us looking at more activation of the waterfront as a priority.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously, our team here is trying to do that through festivals and events. I'm wondering whether or not it would be worthwhile, whether it be at the October meeting, to discuss what opportunities there exist to create like seasonal vendors along the waterfront. Similar, I mean, there's a number of communities that have pop-up shops, stores, what have you, that operate over the summer period and close down for the winter. Now, those pop-up shops require basically a shop to set up in, which is something that, if the board is interested in, could be worth considering. And there could be a way to recoup some of those costs through, I think we'd want to make it attractive to the vendors, but there could be a rent applied to those pop-up shops so that it's not a net loss for the board. It's just something to consider.
Travis, are you speaking? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think that's a great idea. I do think we should take some time as a board to meet and discuss kind of those elements of activation and of even looking at the special events, because now we have about a season-ish of administering funds through our TDF line for special events, and maybe we have some reports back on that tourism aspect and how many out of town guests and that sort of stuff these festival and events are bringing in, and if we need to kind of refine some of our evaluate our process and refine some of the requirements for that streamline as well. I like the idea of the pop-up shops. I don't know what rules are in place and stuff. I know there's some issues to deal with in terms of the mall, but that I've heard of. I'm not sure if it would be an issue anymore, but I think we should definitely take the time to discuss some of those products, because I think that is something I can see us funding through product development in our general as well.
I think it's a great agenda item there, Travis. Go ahead, Joe.
Travis, are you referring to the discussion that's already been had to some degree of getting the steel containers on the waterfront?
Yeah, it could be that, Joe. I mentioned to Dawn, we are potentially looking at, what could we do to stimulate or entice, I know we don't have many right now, but food vendors, food trucks, what have you, along the waterfront. But yeah, I think if you were looking at, just throwing some examples out there, if you had a seasonal, rotating art gallery, if you had, we don't have any Sioux swag, so you could have some Sioux specific clothing vendors, something comparable to whether it be the Totem Pole or Canadian Carver, just a small pop-up shop, but looking at, what could benefit our local vendors, and how do we get them exposed to, the crowds that we're now seeing in the area. Like, I think when you start looking at the foot traffic coming off the cruise ships, like I look out my window every day and see Jeff and Sheila's Miss Marie, and it's packed. So we're seeing a lot more people down in this area. So how do we take that money from those individuals and spread it around to some of our other local vendors? And obviously, to a certain degree, I think that would help with increasing length of stay. It's just another one of those items that gives some people something else to do while they're here, and hopefully keeps them around a little bit longer.
I agree with everything you said. I think that the big difficulty is management, control, and liability and responsibility. Those are all important issues. Number one. Number two, food trucks in Sault Ste. Marie. God bless us. You're not going to be able to get it. The regulations by Algoma Public Health with food trucks is impossible to meet. It's really a difficult situation. We don't have any in the Sioux other than 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And they make it impossible.
Yeah.
You have to have hot water and all of the kinds of things that you need. And I get this from Ben Pino. In terms of all the stuff he has to go through, especially when we have it for the cruise. We try to get people down there at the GFL for food and so on, and it's really difficult. So I think we should do things to attract people down at Bonder Place. I think it's being underutilized. I think music down there would be great if you could work with the Conservancy, local bands and so on. I mean, attractions that will bring people down there would be great. I think as an entertainment venue, it's a great place to promote.
Mm-hmm.
And
challenge.
Bring back ideas, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. Just on actually using the pavilion, the challenge we have, and I can bring the stats back, is it's booked most of the summer. So we'll have to. We can work to get the amount of days that it's booked in the summer, but we may have to, you know, just come out from that area. You know, and we could look at the base of Spring Street or part of Foster Drive in that area.
I think though that Travis, that's important information to come back for us with, because I mean, if the feeling is that the Bondar Pavilion is grossly underutilized, yet it's booked all the time, there might be a disconnect there. That it would be good to have that understanding as to what it's being used for and how often it's being used.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, we can do that for sure.
We have it booked for the cruise, by the way, for next year.
Keep that one on the books.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay. Well,
yeah, I think that's all really good conversation, and on the docket for October is probably a good agenda place for it.
Yeah, we're going to have to work with planning. I just need to work through some of the regulations, but I think absolutely on the programming side, we can pull through some of those details. So we'll get our team working on some of that for October.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the Shriners. I think that went well.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead, Brad.
That's so. As an Indigenous experience or a business that provides that, I think that it's pretty glaring when we have these cruise ships coming off, and you know, for the folks that would want to see something that you know, they kind of view as being a Canadian experience. As Indigenous people, I think that, you know, we're being asked very little of our talents and everything. And I think that, you know, we've had a chance to talk with, you know, since we've been here in Sault Ste. Marie, we've had a chance to talk with a lot of people who would be interested to, you know, to join us to present some sort of significant attraction as those cruise ships get off, or those people get off and onto their way, just as they're leaving, kind of as a you know, welcome, more or less, of that area. So that's something that I certainly would be interested to discuss, how we can talk to them about the this place as being such a sacred place to all Indigenous people of the area, and showcase that in a way that that could be sustainable with the type of people that we have now that work with us, and the ones that could work with us to be able to produce a tourism attraction that certainly could be significant to draw tourists to that before they go off and spend their money potentially where they can purchase you know, crafts and foods from our Indigenous people. I'm well you know, capable of discussing that in the future.
And again, Brad, I think valid, as Lana said, she has different itineraries that people work with, certainly the exploration of what we can add to those itineraries and offerings is valid.
Thank you for acknowledging that.
Awesome. Great conversation today. Again, really appreciate everybody jumping back on a call. I know last week's meeting was a little bit longer of one, and we're working through some big decisions here. So really appreciate everybody's time today. Next meeting will be October 20th at noon. And if there's nothing further, I will call for a mover to adjourn today. Brad, and a seconder. Ilya, and with that, we are adjourned.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.